All right, just so for everyone's information, this meeting will be recorded and it'll be posted on our website so that you can refer back to this information for for future use. Um, I will start with an introduction for those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. My name is Jose Trujillo. I am the homeownership team manager, part of OHFS, which is the Office of Housing, Finance, and Sustainability. We're part of the Division of Housing, DOH here, in the Department of Local Affairs here at the state of Colorado. The homeownership team, we kind of manage contracts, once they're executed, that deal with homeownership. So typically that's been contracts that deal with like DPA, down payment assistance, or the SFOO rehab, which is single family owner occupied rehab programs. We also manage the contracts that deal like development contracts and acquisitions that deal with home ownership and the mobile home park acquisitions and so forth. Our team will also kind of be your point of contact. The home ownership team will be the point of contact for questions regarding this home ownership NOFA that was this NOFA was actually sent as part of the newsletter that went out a couple of Fridays ago, and it's a scattered site home ownership NOFA. The draft NOFA was in that email that went out, and this presentation today, this kind of informational session or webinar, is really just kind of our way of maybe kind of providing some details to you in a few slides. So kind of the simple agenda today is I am going to present just a handful of slides, pick probably 5 to 10 minutes worth of some of the details that are in that NOFA. The majority of this meeting is really going to be just open up for questions, suggestions, comments, feedback that we're going to take into review before we finalize the NOFA and submit it on June 23rd. What I will do here is I will try to answer as many questions as I can today. The home ownership team is also on this call, and so I may phone a friend. I see a couple faces there that I may phone a friend if there's some questions I don't know the answers to. But I will also point out that there may be some questions or some comments that we won't get resolved today. And what we'll do is when we submit that final NOFA, we will add an FAQ section. And in that FAQ, we'll make sure to address any questions or concerns or feedback that we weren't able to kind of get addressed today. So with that, we'll get started on the slides. I will ask this. If you could hold off on your questions until after I'm done with going through the slides, it really will be pretty quick. It's just about 5 to 10 minutes of the slides. And then what we'll do is we'll open it up for questions. When we do have questions, you will have the opportunity to submit questions one of two ways. One, you can type them in the chat. And I believe Christine Peterson, will be monitoring those questions. And then the other part is you can always raise your hand, and Bailey Tickey will be kind of monitoring those so we can get those questions. You can unmute and then ask your question. So the first part of this overview is just kind of what's in the actual draft NOFA that was sent out. Just basically describes what that NOFA is. Next slide. And I thought this was kind of a little bit more kind of detailed description of kind of what it is. So this NOFA is designed to provide a more flexible application pathway for agencies implementing scattered site homeownership modules. So we recognize that our standard application process can present challenges when it comes to documenting due diligence for those type of programs. And this approach aims to better align with how those models operate. It will also allow OHFS staff to gain a better understanding or clearer understanding of each agency's unique program design and better assess them in a consistent and meaningful way. So really what it was is this program is kind of designed for scattered sites with agencies acquiring affordable housing inventory or developing new affordable housing inventory to add to their portfolios. The awards will be formed in the form of a grant. Applications will be done in the neighborly portal and mainly in the form of narrative questions. So one of the issues that popped up and why we threw out this NOFA is that the scattered site application kind of model just doesn't quite fit into any of our other modules. It's not quite a development project. It's not quite a DPA module. So we kind of had to kind of do it separately. So in order for the application to kind of meet more of what this program is going to need, we're going to kind of tailor our DPA module in the neighborly system for our applications. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we're talking about the LOIs and everything else. But again, this is such a unique kind of a program in the way that it's kind of design that we're kind of making a kind of a unique kind of approach to it as well. So, and then eligible applicants are applicants that have opted into Prop 123, and then include kind of the same parameters. They're nonprofit partners, and some of the other agencies are other entities are listed there. Next slide, please. The eligible funding activities are new construction of homeownership units and the acquisition/rehabilitation of homeownership units. And just note that the application must include a realistic unit production timeline. The project or program must be completed within a 2-year agreement if awarded. So that's an important thing to note. Is there going to be 2-year agreements, and we are going to have set milestones and go that route. So another part of the NOFA is the mobile home park acquisition program. So again, eligible is just the acquisition of mobile home communities. Eligible applicants are the nonprofit organizations, and the eligible subrecipients are the ROCs, or resident-owned communities, or the nonprofit organizations to whom the resident-owned community has deferred the right of first refusal. In part of the application process, applicants must describe their current pipeline, potential acquisitions, and outline a realistic timeline for bringing, one or more properties under contract within that 2-year term. So, next slide. So the key dates are, well, today being the informational session. What we do is we're going to take any comments, any feedback from today's meeting, and we're going to post the final NOFA on June 23rd. The letters of intent are going to be due July 1st, and they will be submitted to the homeownership team asset manager team. So for those of you who have actually worked with a homeownership team asset manager, you probably know who your asset manager is. You can submit your LOI directly to them. For those of you that don't know who your asset manager is, or just haven't worked with anyone in the past, scattered sites again are all over the state. So you may not know which asset manager is yours. We have a general email there. It's DOLA_DOH_, and you can see the rest there. But that is just a general email that'll go to our entire homeownership team, and they'll make sure they respond to you. So part of that also is that once you are responded to by an asset manager, they will also then kind of handle the technical assistance piece of it. So they'll assist you with, getting the application opened up for you to apply. They'll assist you with, any questions that go, regarding that piece of it. The application piece itself is going to, as I mentioned earlier, is mainly a narrative section. So we ask a lot of questions, and we're scoring these applications based on the narrative. So the more detailed and more descriptive you can be, the better scoring may be. And we just really want to get a feel for the entire purpose of your award, of your ask. What are you doing? How are you, determining affordability, things like that. So just make sure that you're as descriptive as you can be in that application when you apply. And then the final applications will actually be due on August 15th. Next slide. So just some of the key guidelines in the NOFA are: it's up to $70,000 per unit with no bonus subsidies, up to 100% AMI, and then the front end debt to income ratio at or below 35%. So the 100% AMI and the 35% front end ratio are actually in statute. We actually just kind of put in here the exact way it's written in statute. The key to kind of look at there is that when we're looking at that front end ratio, it includes all kind of household requirements. So like that includes principal and interest, taxes, property insurance, HOA dues, land lease fees, and then kind of metro district fees. So again, just kind of when we kind of stay under that, and again, since they're in statute, there is no gray area with these two things. So there is no waiver process or anything else. So we definitely have to make sure we're on top of those things. There will be a 30-year affordability requirement, and a DOH use covenant will be required for each unit or property. So, and then kind of the last kind of key guideline in here was that, you can ask for administrative support. It is capped at 3% of the total award. Keep in mind that if you do ask for administrative support, we will need a narrative explaining why. What is that narrative support going to be used for, and why do you need it? But also keep in mind that the total award is actually going to be $70,000 per unit. So if you are awarded 3%, that actually comes off of the, so if it's $70,000, you're awarded 3%, that's $2,100. That means that the amount that can be used toward that development activity would only be, what is that number, 67,900. So just be in mind that the total award, including that 3%, is 70,000. So, and then the next slide. So again, like I promised, it's a pretty quick and easy presentation of just kind of some of the key details in the NOFA. You got my information there, my email. But if you have any questions, like again, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to anybody on the homeownership team, and you reach out to anybody here at DOH staff, really. But and they'll get the questions to me. But I will now open it up to questions, comments, feedback, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Michael here. Could you give us the definition of what scattered site is in terms of this particular grant source? And I have a follow-up, actually. Okay.
So scattered sites really just means that there isn't a set site or a set project like already designed or specifically called out already. So like when you think of a project, you think of it's already like you just decided where that site is going to be, how many units and everything else. Scattered site means that it's kind of open to across jurisdictions across the state, that you don't know how many sites are going to be or where they're going to be located. So scattered site just means multiple jurisdictions essentially.
Okay. And then an unrelated second question is maybe several of you have kind of been in this loop in my last 4 or 5 months trying to figure out where the state will land. And that is on the ADU and how they'll be managed under an ADU structure, because many of us are in the business of delivering some units with ADUs, at least in our vision, and trying to explain how that plays out with the use of both CHAFA and DOH deed restrictions, or how it factors into the homeowner's income qualifying as well. So whatever progress you've made on ADU policy that align with the state's new rules around communities allowing ADUs. And I'm in Louisville, so we just accepted a whole blanket ADU. Everybody can do a 500 square foot ADU on their single family lot. Totally great, but it's like, well, if we do that in the deed restricted world, how does that play out? So it's a big question, maybe needed a separate seminar for it.
Yeah, we definitely are working on that. And then I can, yeah, we probably can, maybe talk offline a little bit about that. But what I can say is that the ADU program is part of our SFO program. So it is part of the Prop 123. We do have kind of a pilot program going on with what agency right now. And we are working through, kind of our first funding with that, and working through any kind of potential hurdles, what's working, what isn't, and still working through that, because we know that ADU is just a different beast. That, like you said, the restriction, the income qualifying, things like that. There are definitely lots of things that go into it. So we don't have a final policy in place. We just know that we're working through it right now. So. Christine?
We have a question in the chat. Are regional housing authorities created under CRS 29-1-204 included as eligible agencies, or are council of governments also eligible?
Yes.
I will refer to a friend.
Yes, they would be eligible applicants.
Okay.
Thank you, Ariel.
Any other questions?
Jose, I've got a question. The
Yes,
2-year
sir.
agreement, it's a 2-year agreement. And is that to complete all of the proposed units in the application? And is it a fixed number of units that we're saying we're going to complete?
So yes, that part of the narrative is you're going to tell us what you can complete in that 2-year period. So yes, we expected everything to be completed and dispersed and moved into in that 2-year period.
And so if we have, propose that we're going to do 10 units and then we complete all of those units in less than the 2 years, and there's another cycle for this grant, can we then reapply for additional units on top of that?
Yeah, hypothetically, absolutely. If there is another funding cycle and you've spent everything down, I mean, that is definitely an option. Yes.
And I guess the flip side to that would be anticipating an optimistic number of units and then not achieving that number of units within the 2-year period.
So one of the things that we are definitely asking for in the application is a realistic timeline of proposed, construction and sale, complete sale dates, because we are going to be monitoring that. We're going to see what are you saying that's going to be completed in the first 6 months, year, 18 months, because we want these to be completely sold and completed within that 2-year time frame. So yes, you need to be optimistic, but at the same time realistic about what you're presenting to us.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got another
Any
question.
other? Okay.
So mobile home parks, is that a distinctly separate application within this round, or is that part of a scattered site model?
It's part of a scattered site model. It's just another eligible use for these funds.
And so you would be considering the number of units. I mean, if we propose to say we're going to get 10 units and then there's a mobile home park with 11 units in it, that's a single, or is that all 10 that we propose?
So mobile home parks are kind of dealt with as an entity, like as a group. So like if it's a mobile home park, it's one mobile home park. So if you're looking at a mobile home park acquisition, you'll say we're gonna acquire one mobile home park or 2 mobile home parks within that 2-year time frame.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Jose, do you mind if I jump in?
Sure.
Just to clarify even further, Reed, if you are looking at having a scattered site program and being an administrator for the mobile home park acquisition program, that would require 2 separate applications because it would come with 2 separate budgets.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I'll say also, at this point in time, do you know if there's going to be another funding cycle, or is this the only one that is going to be available in the foreseeable future that you know of?
So this is I guess we'll call it a pilot, so to speak, and we'll see how it works, how successful it is, what edits we might need to make, how any changes. The hope is that if it's successful, obviously I believe we all know that the need is there, that if the funding is available, we might be able to fund another application cycle. We just don't know that yet. Yes, Michael.
Last one for me, but could you guys help define the shovel-ready component to this application and as it aligns with some of the other programs?
So again, our timeline is the 2-year term.
Okay.
So it's just really just what can you complete and sell by the end of the 2-year term.
So I'm interpreting it as maybe one of the most liberal shovel-ready definitions of an application program that DOH is currently managing, because some of them are a little bit more stringent.
Yes and no. Again, I know for this one we're really just looking at that 2-year time frame.
Okay.
In the application, again, there's going to be some milestones. Like what do you hope to accomplish, or what is your timeline for the 6-month mark? Like, is it just because you're constructing a new project or a new unit, you might say that that we're going to be 50% complete, just as hypothetically, or X amount complete by this date, but we do expect to have it complete and sold by the end of the 2-year time frame. So we're going to kind of hold you to what you put in your application as to your timelines.
So it's this is kind of a loaded question, but quite a bit of applications are tied to entitlement, and you didn't know whether that would be a almost disqualifier on this round if you weren't through entitlement.
I'm not sure. I might phone a friend on this one again. Ariel.
Sorry, Michael, can you repeat that question?
So yeah, here I can come on since all the gray hair guys are on there too. So it's just the concept of shovel ready is permeating all these application cycles, and this one seems like it doesn't have as stringent of a shovel ready view. But if we could get a sense on at what point within shovel ready, the concept of shovel ready does this not make sense for some of our project because they're not all the way through entitlement.
Oh, I understand. So yeah, the intent of this scattered site model is more of a program style because typically the sites aren't known yet and they're to be determined.
Okay.
If you do have a site where you're just like working through the due diligence to get ownership of it, we do have separate funding cycles for home ownership projects. Teresa put a link in the chat there, so you can take a look of when those next cycles are. But
Yep.
we really are targeting scattered site models here, where they might purchase a property and rehab it in Grand Junction and sell it to an eligible home buyer, and then they might find another home that they're able to acquire and rehab and sell or build. They just don't know the site yet. So if you have a project specific project in mind, it might be better to go through our traditional application process once you have all that due diligence documents required, if you're working through the entitlement items.
Good, thanks.
In terms of the gray hair, I was trying to tell my wife I was turning blonde, but she didn't buy it.
Come on, Reed, show yourself.
All right, fine, but you can't see the gray because of the lighting. So our interest in this becoming available was that initially we had a single home in Leadville, a single home over here, and it was just too small to do a full application. Then we got to a quadplex that we could acquire, and that seemed to fall under this. We've also got 2 triplexes kind of in the pipeline. And, what's the threshold for considering it appropriate for a scattered site versus a full application? Because our challenge is we have small projects. We can only do 3 or 4 applications a year, and so there's just no way for us to take advantage of all the opportunities without this model. But I'm trying to figure out where to draw the line between what fits here and what should be a full independent application.
So definitely a good question. Just off first, I'm sorry, I was reading that. Off of first glance or first thought there, it kind of might fit the scattered site thing. I think what it is when you submit that application, we would need that detail of what you're trying to accomplish, and we would need to know how you're going to handle the affordability period. How are you going to what is that market study you've done? Like we don't necessarily want to just say, oh yeah, there might be 7 projects here. We want to know that you've targeted a 4-plex and a duplex and these other things. We want to know exactly what you're going to plan on spending, and then we'll just kind of score it with the rest of them. It could fit in this model. Again, we'd have to kind of take a look at it and compare it to what other people are trying to do.
Great.
Yes, Chris.
I feel like we partially answered this question already, but maybe a little bit more detail. Whoops. Sorry, the chat's moving too quickly for me to read it all. For new construction, do we mean shovel ready or that infrastructure is in place, or something they can quickly acquire and have site control quickly? I know we're focused on the 2 years, but if they say infrastructure is already in place, does this have to be a brand new development, or can they be partially through that process at this point?
Again, we're looking at a realistic time frame. So, they have to kind of know what's going on with that particular project or that particular site. If it's a site that has no infrastructure, that has nothing, and they won't be able to actually start construction for a year and a half, then it may not fit what we're trying to accomplish here by getting these units, completed and sold within that 2-year time frame. So, as much information as they can provide, or as the agency can provide in the application and the narrative, the better we can score it and determine if it's something that fits this model right now.
Okay, and follow-up question. Is there any consideration for a higher than 3% admin threshold? That seems to be really low considering there is a 30-year affordability period where we won't receive admin during that time.
So if you're going to ask for more admin, again, we ask for an explanation of what the admin is needed for and what you're doing. It doesn't hurt to ask. I don't know that we will necessarily grant any more than the 3%, but if you determine, you give us the data that this information says you need more, it's something we can definitely review. Again, no promises that we would ever approve anything above that 3%, but it is something we would review.
Thank you. And one more. Would funding be applicable in a scenario where a family is pooling resources, including ownership equity and non-owner income, to build an ADU and the individual contributing the income, sorry, I scrolled too quickly, enabling the ADU construction would effectively become a first-time home buyer by being added to the title?
There's a lot in that question.
Yes.
And my first thought is just that, that would fit more into our ADU program. And that, just have whoever asked that question, if they could reach out to either Bailey or I, and we can discuss that specific, because that doesn't necessarily fit this model if it's more of what we're trying to accomplish with our ADU program. Any other questions? Looks like Jennifer had a question. Let me see if I can read that.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, my question was, do you have a requirement on how the initial affordable sales price is determined? And then following that, Jose, is what's an acceptable affordability period on the deed restriction? And thank you.
So we're looking at a 30-year affordability period. And in terms of the first part of that is, again, in the narrative, you're going to tell us how you're coming up with the affordable sales price.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else? Yes, Michael.
Will you substitute a 30 or in perpetuity deed restriction from a local government or a housing authority for the use covenant from the state, so we don't have two deed restrictions on the property effectively?
I will have to phone a friend on that particular question.
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
We would require the use of our DOH use covenant template.
So does the state provide any resources to, sorry to follow up, does the state provide the resources then to protect the covenant versus having the local government or the housing authority be responsible for that?
That's not currently how our models are set up, but this is a requirement of getting grant funding to ensure the long-term affordability and ensuring our requirements, including the ones tied to statute of Prop 123, are captured in our use covenant. And so this is our current model, and this is how the state continues to continue our home ownership model if folks are receiving grant funding. It's important that we're preserving that affordable stock we're helping create in the long term. Unfortunately, we haven't allowed folks to use their covenant only versus ours. It's something we can continue to think about, but at this time, that's not something that we are doing, and unfortunately don't have additional resources in the long term to provide.
Christine?
How are we determining if the initial sales prices are affordable?
Again, it's going to be in the narrative provided by the applicant. They're going to tell us how are they making it affordable. We're not asking for like a budget spreadsheet or anything like that. What we're asking for is them telling us how, they should know what's going on in their areas, where they're proposing, and they tell us how it's going to be affordable. Jennifer?
Thank you. One more question, Jose. I missed the answer to Reed's question.
Okay.
Is there a minimum project size, or if we have two separate developments in one area, can we submit them all under one NOFA, or do they need to be under two? And do you have a minimum that an agency can apply for in any 1 year? Just in case we get really busy.
No, again, what we're really looking for is just that realistic timeline of what you can accomplish in the 2-year time frame. So whether it's one big project, whether it's a couple projects, whether it's scattered sites, I mean, the goal is that it's hopefully a scattered site type deal, and that's kind of what we're looking for. But you submit to us what you're expecting within that time frame, and we can then review it and score it according to what the NOFA is presented as. So.
I also want to name, like, this is limiting pool. We do have application cycles for homeownership development. So it may make sense, depending on timing, for you to utilize one of those other application cycles rather than this homeownership NOFA. But those are for project specific for those application cycles.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for attending. Again, the next date basically is June 23rd. We will post the final NOFA. We will include an FAQ section as well, where we will kind of address some of these questions here and go from there. So I want to thank you all and see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.